Opening. The truth about attraction and the Stoic shift. You've been told your whole life that if you want to win a woman's heart, you have to chase her, compliment her, impress her, constantly prove your worth. But let's tell the truth. Chasing rarely leads to lasting desire. Why? Because underneath all that effort is a quiet scent of desperation, and women can smell it a mile away. Not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to seek strength, not need. Here's the paradox. The more you chase, the more she pulls away. The more you prove, the less she feels. And the more you try to earn her, the more she questions if you're truly worth having. But there's another way, one that flips this game on its head. Stoicism doesn't teach you how to manipulate women. It teaches you how to master yourself. It's not about trying harder. It's about standing still, grounded, focused, unmoved by noise or approval. Because when a man becomes rooted in purpose, when he stops performing and starts living from depth, women feel it. She doesn't chase the loudest man in the room. She's drawn to the calmest one. In this video, we're going to explore 10 Stoic shifts that flip the script. No tricks, no pickup lines, just timeless masculine principles that make you magnetic. Not because you're trying, but because you've stopped needing. If you've ever felt like chasing was exhausting, like something deep inside you knew there had to be another way, you were right. Let's begin. Master your emotions. Most men have no idea how much their emotional reactivity sabotages their chances with women. A text goes unanswered for an hour and suddenly they're spiraling, questioning their worth, overanalyzing every emoji, wondering if she's lost interest. That anxiety leaks into their energy, and whether they say it out loud or not, women can feel it. But here's the truth. Women are not drawn to chaos. They're drawn to calm, to presence, to the kind of man who doesn't flinch at emotional uncertainty. While most men chase validation, a Stoic man chases mastery. Not over her, but over himself. Imagine this. Two men, same scenario. Both message a woman. She doesn't reply for hours. The first man grows tense, his mind racing. He sends follow-ups, maybe even a passive-aggressive joke. The second man, he closes his phone, goes for a walk and returns to his life. Which one do you think she'll be more curious about? Emotional self-control is not coldness. It's quiet power. It's the ability to sit with discomfort without needing to act on it. And it's incredibly rare. Because here's what most men don't understand. The moment you let your emotions lead, you hand over your frame. You abandon your center. And women, especially intelligent, emotionally intuitive women, can feel that loss of grounding instantly. It's not about pretending to be unbothered. It's about actually being unshaken, because you know your worth doesn't depend on someone else's attention. This doesn't mean you suppress how you feel. It means you own it. You feel the wave, but you don't drown in it. You pause. You breathe. You choose your response with intention. That's Stoicism in action. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's a tactical advantage in the modern dating world. Because when you stay calm under pressure, you give her something almost no man offers: safety. And safety doesn't mean comfort. It means structure. It means she knows that no matter what emotion she brings, frustration, confusion, passion, you'll meet it with steadiness, not volatility. In a world full of men who panic, who over-explain, who try to manage her feelings to avoid rejection, the one who remains centered becomes unforgettable, and calmness is contagious. When you embody that grounded energy, she begins to mirror it. You shift the emotional tone of every interaction. Conversations deepen, flirtation intensifies. Trust begins to grow, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't react to. So if you want to be the kind of man women chase, stop trying to impress. Start mastering yourself. The most attractive men don't broadcast their value. They reveal it slowly through their presence. Control your emotions and you control the frame. Control the frame, and you'll never need to chase again. Stay true to your values. There's a silent moment in many relationships where a man faces a decision to speak his truth or to bend himself just enough to keep the peace. Most choose the latter. They stay silent, compromise too soon, or even reshape their entire identity around what they think a woman wants, and that's the moment they begin to lose her. Because here's something few men realize. A woman may like being agreed with, but she deeply respects the man who stands for something. A man with values. A man with backbone. A man who can be kind and grounded without ever losing his edge. In the short term, abandoning your path might seem like a shortcut to connection. You skip the argument. You make her happy. You stay close. But over time, she senses the shift. She feels the lack of core. And subconsciously her attraction begins to fade. Not because you weren't good to her, but because you weren't true to you. There is nothing more magnetic than a man who moves through life with intention, not trying to control others but refusing to be controlled. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful compass. It doesn't teach you to dominate. It teaches you to live with integrity. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, don't trade your values for validation, even if it costs you approval in the moment. Women may test your frame, not because they want to destroy it, but because they want to feel its strength. And if you flinch, if you shift your boundaries to avoid discomfort, what you communicate is simple. I'll abandon myself to keep you. That is not love. That is self-betrayal. Instead, be the man who defines his own path and walks it, even if it's uphill. That could mean holding your boundaries around your fitness routine, even when she asks you to skip the gym. It could mean sticking to your financial principles, even if she wants you to spend more freely. It could mean continuing your morning rituals, your reading, your solitude, because those things keep you aligned with who you are. Women don't fall in love with men who do whatever they ask. They fall for men whose lives are already rich with purpose, men who welcome them in, but never revolve around them. So here's a practical challenge. Define 5 non-negotiable values. Not abstract ideas like kindness or confidence, but principles that shape how you move. For example, I don't cancel my priorities to please others. I speak honestly, even if it's uncomfortable. I maintain discipline in my body and mind daily. I never argue to win, only to understand. I pursue peace, not approval. Write them down. Revisit them, live them, because when you're tested, and you will be, these values become your armor. They help you respond with strength instead of submission. And over time, the women in your life will feel something rare: security. Not the safety of predictability, but the safety of knowing you can't be moved by mere emotion. That's the kind of man she doesn't just desire, she respects. Stop chasing validation. Let's be honest. How many times have you checked your phone after sending a message, hoping for a quick reply? Or posted something online and waited for a like, especially from her? It's subtle, but in that moment you're not grounded. You're reaching, and that reaching is where attraction dies. Most men don't realize how much of their behavior is driven by one thing: validation. They want to be liked. They want to be approved of. They want confirmation that they're enough. And so they chase it, through compliments, attention, flirty emojis, or a flood of reassuring texts. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you seek her validation, the more invisible you become. Women have an incredible sensitivity to energy. They may not always name it, but they feel it. They can tell when a man's words are crafted to please, not to express. They notice when he's trying too hard to impress, rather than standing comfortably in his truth. And when that happens, something shifts, not dramatically, but quietly. She respects him less. She desires him less. Not because he's unkind or unattractive, but because he's out of alignment with himself. The Stoics understood this long before Instagram made dopamine hits available every 5 minutes. Epictetus wrote, "If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your integrity." Real confidence, the kind that draws a woman in deeply, doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't seek. It simply is. When you stop chasing validation, something powerful happens. You create space. And in that space, curiosity grows. She starts to wonder what you're focused on. She feels the calm energy of a man who isn't waiting on her attention to feel good about himself. And paradoxically, that's what makes her pay more attention. You become the mountain, not the leaf in the wind. So how do you stop seeking validation? It begins with awareness. Start noticing your patterns, the urge to double text, to over-explain, to check how she's reacting to everything you say. Don't judge yourself, just notice. That awareness is the first step toward power. Then, shift your focus inward. Ask yourself, what makes me proud when no one's watching? Where does my self-worth come from? And how can I reinforce it without depending on anyone else's opinion? That might mean spending more time building your craft, strengthening your body, journaling to clarify your purpose, or even sitting in silence to feel your own presence again. And here's what most men miss. When you detach from needing her attention, you actually become more attractive. Not because you're playing a game, but because you're finally aligned with something deeper. You're living with substance, with direction, with peace. Women don't chase men who try to impress them. They chase men who impress themselves. So the next time you're tempted to prove your worth, stop, breathe. Remember that validation is never given freely. It's earned through quiet self-respect. And the man who no longer needs it becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. 5. Your choices carry. Wait, every day we make choices. Some feel small: what to eat, what to say, when to speak. Others seem bigger: where to live, what career to pursue, who to commit to. But here's a truth that most men overlook. All choices carry weight, especially in her eyes. Indecision isn't neutral. It's draining. It signals uncertainty. And for a woman, that uncertainty doesn't create safety. It creates distance. You may think you're being polite when you ask her, "Where do you want to go?" or "What do you feel like doing?" But too much of this, and she begins to carry the weight you're supposed to hold. What starts as a courteous gesture becomes a habit of passivity. And that passivity slowly erodes respect. Here's what women rarely say out loud but feel deeply. If you can't choose where to eat, how will you choose what kind of life we're building? The Stoics teach us that a man must live with clarity and intention. He must know his values and move according to them. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." It's not about being perfect. It's about stepping into the role of someone who can decide and lead, not just react and defer. This doesn't mean being controlling. Leadership isn't about dominance. It's about direction. A man who knows what he wants radiates stability. He brings order. He carries the map. Even if she suggests a detour, she feels secure knowing he has a destination in mind. That energy, calm, directed, firm, is magnetic. So how do you begin to lead with clarity? Start small. When a decision needs to be made, make it. When you're unsure, still choose and own it. Take responsibility for outcomes whether they work or not. Women don't expect perfection. They respect presence, accountability, and movement. Imagine this. You're out with someone. Instead of saying, "What do you want to do?" you simply say, "Let's try that quiet Italian spot downtown. I've been meaning to check it out." That small act does something powerful. It signals that you are a man who takes initiative, and that is rare and attractive. This principle extends far beyond dating. Your choices reflect your character. Do you wake up with a plan or drift through your day? Do you let fear make your decisions for you, or do you act despite it? Inaction isn't safety, it's stagnation. And a stagnant man is not one who inspires trust or desire. Women remember how you make them feel. And one of the most powerful feelings a man can offer is direction without pressure. So the next time you're tempted to delay a choice, hoping someone else will decide for you, don't. Breathe, ground yourself and choose. Not to impress, not to control, but because your ability to lead begins with one quiet, conscious action at a time. In a world full of hesitation, the man who moves with purpose becomes the one worth following. Ask for favors. It might sound counterintuitive. That asking for help could make someone like you more. But human nature is full of quiet paradoxes, and this is one of the most powerful. The Benjamin Franklin effect. In his autobiography, Franklin shared a curious strategy. To win over a political opponent, he didn't flatter or impress. Instead, he asked the man to lend him a rare book. The man complied. And strangely, from that moment on, he became friendlier, more open. Psychologists later confirmed the pattern. We tend to like the people we do small favors for. Why? Because when we help someone, our brain instinctively rewrites the story. If I help this person, I must like them. Emotional investment grows not just from receiving, but from giving. Now think about how this applies in the realm of attraction. Most men believe they have to do all the giving. compliments, gifts, time, attention. They think they need to impress a woman into liking them. But that dynamic flips the script. It creates imbalance. The woman becomes the one holding power, while the man seeks approval. But a Stoic man doesn't chase approval. He invites participation. When you ask a woman for a small, thoughtful favor, a book recommendation, an opinion on a new shirt, or a quick tip on something she's passionate about, you're doing something quietly powerful. You're allowing her to contribute. You're showing confidence, not neediness. You're creating a moment of shared agency. It's not manipulation. It's invitation. Here's what happens beneath the surface. By asking her for something personal, you're signaling that you see her as valuable, not just attractive. That you're not afraid to connect, but you're not begging for it either. And here's where it gets deeper. A man who can receive is a man who is secure. He's not trying to prove his worth through control or overperformance. He can hold space and allow others in. This kind of presence is rare. Let's be clear. We're not talking about asking for favors that burden her or come across as lazy. We're talking about small, meaningful gestures that allow her to express herself and feel trusted. It might sound like, "You read a lot. Got any books you think I should check out? You've got great taste. Would you help me pick a shirt for a friend's birthday dinner? I'm trying to get into cooking. What's one dish you think every guy should know?" Each of these requests isn't just a question. It's a mirror, reflecting your interest in her world and your openness to hers. And there's more. When a woman gives a piece of advice or contributes something that you later act on, it creates an emotional echo. She's now part of your story. That memory lingers. That bond strengthens. So while most men try to impress by giving, you create connection by receiving with intention. It's a quiet art. One that turns conversations into cooperation, interest into investment, and in a world full of men trying to prove they're enough, the one who simply asks, without shame, without agenda, becomes the one she remembers. Because he doesn't need to shine. He invites her to share the light. Deep conversations, let's be honest. Small talk is exhausting. How was your weekend? What shows are you watching? Did you see the game? It's all surface-level noise that keeps people comfortable but disconnected. And for a woman who has heard the same lines from dozens of men, surface talk is not just boring, it's forgettable. But when a man speaks from a deeper place, when he dares to ask a question that reveals more than the weather or last night's dinner, something shifts. Her attention sharpens, her guard lowers, her interest deepens, because now it's real. You see, most men are afraid to go deep. They fear that vulnerability makes them weak, or that exploring emotions or beliefs will kill the vibe. But Stoic wisdom says otherwise. True strength is found in clarity of thought and calm ownership of one's emotions. Vulnerability, when rooted in strength, doesn't repel, it attracts. Imagine this. Instead of asking her what music she likes, you ask, "What's a song that saved you?" That's a shift. Instead of asking what she does for work, you ask, "What's something you're proud of but never talk about?" That's a door. These kinds of questions aren't tricks. They're invitations for both of you to step out of performance and into presence. Women long for connection, and connection is built on depth, not entertainment. But here's the part. most men miss. To go deep with someone else, you must first go deep with yourself. You can't ask meaningful questions if you haven't done your own inner work. You can't create space for her truth if you've spent your whole life avoiding your own. So before you seek her mind, explore your own. Ask yourself, what do I believe about love? What do I fear losing? What makes me feel most alive? The man who reflects like this doesn't just talk, he speaks with weight. And that weight draws her in, because when a man can speak calmly about his values, his childhood wounds, his dreams for the future, not in a dramatic or needy way, but in a grounded, self-aware tone, he becomes magnetic. Not flashy, but unforgettable. It's not about oversharing. Stoic masculinity doesn't mean spilling your soul to every stranger. It's about discernment, knowing when to go deep, and how to guide a conversation with intention. Here's a simple frame. When you speak, aim to reveal, not impress. And when she speaks, listen not to respond, but to understand. Let her feel that you are fully there, not distracted, not performing, not steering the conversation back to yourself. Just present. Just curious. That kind of attention is rare and powerful. Deep conversations are not just romantic, they're transformative. They awaken something in her. They tell her that you're not just another guy. You're a man with inner life, with substance, with presence. And in a world where people settle for likes instead of being truly known, that's the kind of connection that stands out and stays. So the next time you sit across from her, don't reach for the easy question. Go where others won't. Ask what others don't. Because the man who dares to go deep leaves a mark that shallow words never could. Effective communication is key. Most men misunderstand what communication truly means in a relationship. Some say too little, thinking silence equals strength. Others talk too much, thinking that controlling the conversation means they're in charge. Both approaches fail because communication, real, effective communication, is not about how much you say. It's about how clearly and consciously you speak when it matters. And make no mistake, women are paying attention, not just to your words, but to your energy, your tone, your timing. They're reading between every pause and every sigh. So when you speak, the question is, what does your presence communicate, even before you open your mouth? The Stoic man understands this well. He doesn't blurt. He doesn't ramble. He doesn't over-explain himself out of fear of being misunderstood. Instead, he speaks with calm precision, not to manipulate, not to impress, but to express what is true. And that is rare. In a world obsessed with winning arguments or gaining approval, calm, grounded communication is like fresh air. It tells a woman, this man knows himself. He doesn't need to convince me. He just speaks his truth. That kind of clarity draws her in, not because you're clever, but because you're clean in your intent. Let's say there's tension. Maybe she's upset or testing you or pulling away. The reactive man either lashes out or shuts down, but the Stoic man slows down. He listens, he reflects, then he speaks, not from emotion, but from clarity. He might say, I hear you. I see that you're upset. I'm not here to fight you. I want to understand what matters to you, and I also need to be honest about what matters to me. That kind of statement doesn't raise the emotional heat. It lowers it. It opens space. It shows leadership. not in volume, but in emotional presence. And here's something women don't always say out loud. They feel safest around men who can name what's going on without needing anything from them in return. You don't have to have the perfect response, but you do have to own your words. Speak with purpose. Let her know where you stand. Say what you mean and mean what you say. This doesn't mean being cold. Stoicism is not about becoming robotic. It's about expressing what matters without being swept away. Think of it like this. Your words are like a river. They can either flood and destroy, or they can flow with clarity and nourish the space between you. The difference? Discipline, intention, timing. So the next time you feel the urge to talk just to fill the silence, pause. And the next time you're tempted to stay quiet just to avoid discomfort, speak. Speak not because you need to be heard, but because you have something worth saying. That is what effective communication looks like. Not performance, not perfection, just presence, and the courage to bring your full self into the moment. Because when a woman meets a man who knows how to do that, she doesn't forget it. Maintain a sense of mystery. In an age of instant connection and constant updates, mystery is a lost art. But it's also your quiet superpower, if you know how to use it. Most men fall into the same trap. They overshare. On the first date, they unload their life story, their fears, their past, their goals, even their traumas. They believe that openness equals intimacy, that vulnerability equals trust. But here's the truth. Oversharing too soon doesn't build attraction, it kills curiosity. Women are naturally drawn to discovery, the slow unraveling, the hidden depths, the feeling that there's always more to explore. It's not about playing games or being distant. It's about leaving space for intrigue to grow. The Stoic man understands that not everything needs to be said right away. He knows his value isn't in how quickly he's understood, but in how fully he lives. His stories, his emotions, his ambitions, they are shared with time, intention, and discernment. And that restraint? It's magnetic, because when you don't give everything away, you create emotional tension. And tension, when handled with integrity, is the fuel of desire. This doesn't mean being cold or evasive. It means being rooted in your presence, not eager to impress. It means letting her experience you in layers like chapters of a book, not a blurted summary on page 1. Let her ask. Let her wonder. If she asks about your past, you don't have to spill every detail. You might say, "There's a story there, I'll tell you someday." That single sentence says, "There's more to me than what you see, but I'm in no rush to prove it." And suddenly, she's leaning in. Mystery also shows up in how you carry yourself, in your silences, in your ability to listen more than you speak, in your calm, deliberate responses. A man who speaks less but observes more becomes unforgettable, not because he hides, but because he reveals with purpose. There's a reason women remember the man who didn't rush, who didn't try to dominate the conversation, who had a stillness about him, a depth that wasn't loud, but undeniable. This is not manipulation. It's maturity, because the truth is, no one wants a puzzle that's already been solved. What she truly desires is to feel like she's slowly earning access to your world. that each conversation brings her closer, not because you're performing, but because you're choosing to let her in. The Stoic man does not seek to be immediately known. He seeks to be genuinely experienced over time. So hold back, not out of fear, but out of power. Let her discover who you are, not through long-winded speeches, but through your actions, your presence, and your poise under pressure. Because when a woman feels like she's still discovering you, even months in, she stays emotionally engaged. She imagines more. She invests more. And most importantly, she chases not because you're hiding, but because you're worth the search. 10. Patience is power in a world trained to want everything now. Immediate answers, instant gratification, fast responses. Patience becomes a rare and commanding energy, but in the realm of attraction, it's not just rare, it's powerful. Most men make the same mistake. They text too often, overthink silences, chase too hard, too soon. And in doing so, they reveal their hand. Insecurity, urgency, and fear of being forgotten. Desperation repels every time. Because when a man rushes, what he's silently saying is, I don't believe I'm enough unless you validate me right now. And that energy, that frantic energy, disrupts the natural rhythm of emotional connection. Women, on the other hand, move on a different timeline. Their attraction unfolds in layers, subtle shifts. Emotions build through absence as much as presence, through space as much as contact. When you give her time and trust that time, you're not losing momentum, you're building depth. Here's the truth most men never hear. Letting her wonder about you is not passive, it's strategic stillness. When you're not constantly available, not checking in every few hours, not trying to keep her interested, something powerful happens. She begins to feel your absence. And that absence creates emotional space. A space where she starts to miss you, initiate contact, lean forward instead of pulling away. This doesn't mean playing games. It doesn't mean ghosting or withholding with manipulation. It means trusting your value enough not to chase. It means believing that what you offer is real, and that if she's truly aligned with it, she will come closer without needing to be pushed. The Stoic man is patient not because he's indifferent, but because he's intentional. He doesn't react to silence with fear. He lets things breathe. He knows that true interest reveals itself over time, not through constant talking, but through the quiet space in between. Think of emotional tension like a fire. If you smother it, it goes out. But if you give it air, the right kind of space, it catches, grows, and becomes something lasting. When you hold back, when you pause, when you say less, you give her room to feel. And that feeling is what drives her to pursue. Patience is power because it communicates self-sufficiency. It tells her you're not desperate. You're not available to just anyone. You're selective. You're grounded. You don't need her to feel whole, but you're open to building something meaningful if she's truly aligned. Women are drawn to men who don't force things, because forcing feels like pressure, and pressure, without emotional safety, makes her withdraw. But when she senses your patience, she feels free. Free to be curious, free to open up, free to step toward you of her own will. And that's the kind of attraction that actually lasts. So next time you're tempted to fill the silence with a message, or prove your interest by doing more. Pause. Let her feel your absence. Let her come to you, because when a man can hold that stillness, when he can wait without fear, he becomes unforgettable. The quietest guy in the room. Let me tell you about someone I met years ago. He wasn't tall. He didn't have perfect teeth or a flashy car. He never told long stories, never tried to dominate the conversation. In fact, at first glance, you probably wouldn't even notice him. He just sat there, sipping his drink slowly, eyes calm, body relaxed, posture grounded. While others tried to prove themselves, he simply listened. But what struck me wasn't what he said. It was how others responded to him. The most beautiful woman at the gathering, the kind of woman every man tried to impress, slowly drifted toward him. Not because he chased her, but because his silence pulled her in. When she spoke, he didn't interrupt. He didn't compliment her dress. He didn't rush to validate her. He just looked, not through her, but into her, with stillness, with presence, with a kind of quiet awareness that said, "I don't need you to like me, but I see you." It was magnetic, almost primal. By the end of the evening, she was leaning in, laughing softly, brushing his arm. She looked safe, seen, invited, not chased. And when he finally spoke, just one line, she froze. Not in fear, but fascination, because she felt something she hadn't in years. Emotional gravity. That night changed how I saw masculinity forever. It's not the loudest man who wins. Her. It's the one who needs the least approval. It's the one who's done the inner work. The man who doesn't prove, he simply is. So if you ever wonder whether you're enough to be chased, to be chosen, to be truly respected, don't try to impress more. Instead, become more still, more certain, more anchored in your own truth. Because when a man carries himself like that, the world doesn't just notice, it follows. Conclusion. Become the man. She chases. This isn't about playing games. It's not about learning tactics or psychological tricks to get her attention. It's about who you choose to become. Attraction is not earned through chasing. It's revealed through presence. Real, grounded, unshakable presence. When a man embraces Stoicism, he stops looking outward for validation. He's no longer a performer in search of applause. He becomes something far more powerful. A man with purpose, composure, and a clear sense of self. That calm energy, it speaks louder than words. That stillness, it makes her feel safe, seen, and drawn in. Not because you tried to impress her, but because you impressed upon the world that you no longer chase. You've become a man who leads, not only in his relationships, but in his decisions, his values, and his life. And that, right there, is the most magnetic force of all. So, if you've made it this far, here's your next step. Don't just consume this message. Live it. Practice silence where others seek noise. Choose direction where others drift. Build strength where others demand attention. Let your life speak without shouting. And as you do, you'll find that not only women, but opportunity, respect, and admiration begin to move toward you, effortlessly. Because the man who doesn't chase is the man who is ultimately chased. If you felt something stir inside you during this video, subscribe, not just to this channel, but to a new way of showing up in the world, a way rooted in timeless Stoic wisdom. Welcome to the path.